So how to grow your YouTube channel with an interchangeable lens camera. Look, first of all, it doesn't matter what camera you use. If you got a cell phone, use it, period. The number one most important thing is to tell stories. And that's what I don't see a lot of. Tell stories, tell stories, tell stories. But one of the more effective ways to tell a story is to tell it from a different perspective. Let's think about Goldilocks and the Three Bears, all right? From what perspective is that story always told? Goldilocks. We always hear about Goldilocks getting lost in the woods and getting hungry and finding this house and eating some porridge and not too hot, not too cold, just right. And she gets sleepy and she goes upstairs and too hard, too soft, just right, right? And happy end of the story. What if we told that same story from the perspective of Mommy Bear? I guarantee you it's a whole different story. It's like, you know, house invader, eating her kids' food, sleeping in her kids' bed. Mama Bear sees a threat now, and guess what? Little Goldilocks gets mauled, and we read about it on the nightly news. Right? That's how that, you know, perspective plays a very important part. Now, that's a perspective in terms of the person. You know, it's told from the perspective of a different person through their eyes. Right? And so from every lens, you get a different perspective. You're looking at me now on a 24mm lens, right? That's different than what you've seen with my 50mm macro lens. It's different than the 50mm normal lens. Test, 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 test. Is different than you've seen the 135mm lens. And it's different than what you've seen with my big 300mm lens. What your eye sees almost all the time, every day, is essentially what we call a 50mm lens. You look at a lot of your great classic films were shot on 50mm lenses. Now, how is this, you know, all this mean you're going to get more subscribers? What does it have to do with it? Well, easy. Better storytelling captures and holds people's attention, holds their attention for longer, and makes them love your content, by which they rate, they comment, they subscribe, they go to your website and buy your stuff, right? I don't get the sense that many online outdoors YouTubers understand that. I understand if all you have is a cell phone, don't let that stop you. Shoot with the cell phone. But understand the cell phone is one perspective. That's one lens, usually wide angle. I'll tell you a quick story. I remember when I was really getting serious about making more serious videos. I was really wanting to get better, and I was reaching out to a Chinese company to maybe they would supply a microphone and I would exchange it. And the lady replied back, says, "Why is your footage so shaky?" And I thought my videos were good, but they weren't. They were horrible. Because all I had was that stupid hat cam with a contour roll, or what a lot of fishermen know as a GoPro type of camera, an action camera. That camera has a place, but it is limited because all it is a super wide angle fisheye type lens, and that's it. Haven't you ever wondered when people sit down and do talking head videos like this, how they look so weird? It's like they're just, you know, it just doesn't look right. Because it's not a portrait lens, it's a wide angle lens designed to capture great grand vistas, and you're trying to use it as a portrait lens like a 50mm or something. If they just went from that equivalent of I don't know what it is, it's probably like a 15mm fisheye or something. If they just went from that to something more like a 24mm lens or a 28 or even a 35, still kept the wide-ish angle, but just more flattering to the subject, it would look so much better, right? Because the way it looks depends on whether or not they're going to click it on or subscribe. Take my last video, for instance, on the fishing river. let's count the number of shots that I had. You know, there was the opening shot there, 50 millimeter. Second shot, 50 millimeter, of me walking up to the truck. And a lot of that was 50 millimeter unloading the trike off of the truck. And then I switched to the 135 millimeter as I was riding it down the hill. When I arrive on the river, 24 millimeters. When you saw me shooting the crane, 300 millimeters. And then I put the 24 millimeter back on as I'm running up and down the river and you're seeing me talk on the river. Got one, fellas. Tick. And then the barge shot, 300 millimeters. I literally stopped, took the lens, old lens off of the camera, put the other lens on it, refocused, reset the aperture, reset everything, and got another shot. All right? It's not until you begin to see yourself as either a filmmaker or TV show producer that you really begin to make better videos. Because as long as the activity that you're doing, whether it's fishing, hunting, biking, whatever, is more important than telling the story, your videos will always suffer. Because whenever you reach a point to where it's either I need to get a better shot or I'm just more interested in catching a bigger fish, you're always going to make the decision that defaults to the sport that you're engaging in. Right? Unless you just have enough money to have a camera crew to worry about all that stuff for you. But for most of us, single person like me, that's one of the reasons why I don't worry about eating meat anymore, because I don't have that pressure of having to fish for meat. I can now tell better stories, as evidenced by the weekend's video of when I broke the propeller. It's my #1 video for the month. All right, I mean, that's the fact. And I've got people, even though I didn't even fish with a handline reel, the fact that I mentioned the handline reel just sort of off to the side, people are asking about it, and I'm making sales on the handline reel and sales on the class. Not because I did a go buy my stuff video, it was just I told a story, and in part of that story I was explaining a question and about the handline reels, and I just sort of mentioned it almost in passing, and yet people are buying my reels. You gain more subscribers on YouTube by telling better stories. There is more than 100 years of knowledge in terms of motion picture that has been passed down that you need to learn and master to tell better stories. The sad part is very few YouTubers seek out to learn about that body of knowledge. They just don't see themselves as filmmakers and TV show producers. They only see themselves as fishermen, hunters, bike riders, whatever it is. And that's really the sad and unfortunate thing. Or they just see themselves as YouTubers, talking head videos, and they just don't see anything else. You know, if you're have a hunting channel, go watch all these hunting TV shows and look at how they shoot. I guarantee you'll start noticing these varying focal lengths. They're not shooting on one focal length with a GoPro camera. Come on. Doesn't mean you have to go out and buy $20,000 worth of equipment, right? It doesn't mean that either. But it doesn't mean you're just restricted to your cell phone or GoPro camera either. What if you had your cell phone plus a little GoPro over there? Add 2 cameras, right? Without the interchangeable lenses, my videos wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting, and I wouldn't have anywhere near as many subscribers, and I wouldn't have anywhere near the growth that I've had once I started shooting this way. It's something you don't hear many YouTubers talk about, because most people are just more interested in getting more subscribers and just more views. But it's not until you start, and it's not until the desire to tell better stories that sort of takes over everything that you're doing. Until that becomes the priority, you really are limiting your growth. That's one of those hard things, you know, that most people just don't want to fess up to. But that's what I got today. See you on the next one.